Hello everyone and welcome to the HCW B-Show. My name is RGX and this is the show where we cover the quote-unquote B-shows that happen each week, your Rampage, your NXT, and when they put on a special like a Takeover or Worlds Collide, we also put one out for that. So this week's show will be centred around WWE Worlds Collide, so let's get into the review. So we go straight into Ricochet versus Carmelo Hayes for the North American title. I swear I looked away for about 10 seconds and probably missed 6 moves. That's how fast paced the action was. Very back and forth with a lot of interference from Trick Williams. Say interference, it's more just distraction on the outside. Eventually Carmelo takes advantage of that distraction and ends the match with a roll up. So still your North American champion, Carmelo Hayes. After that, we get back-to-back vignettes that are exactly the same ones as we saw on NXT last week. So if you want to see them, have a look at our B-Show episode 1. After that, the camera cuts out the back and Roddy has been absolutely laid out, covered in blood, ambulance there, the lot. Of course, nobody knows what's happened to him, at least at this stage. I wonder what it may be. After that, we go into the Tag Team Eliminator match for the Unified Tag Team titles. The teams of Pretty Deadly along with Flash LaRue versus Gallus, which will be Wolfgang and Joe Coffey with Mark Coffey on the outside. Briggs and Jensen along with Fallon Henry versus the Creed brothers along with Damon Kemp. So this could easily be a trio, like trios, because each of them have a kind of third member on the outside who do play into it quite a lot. And it's a good 10 minutes before we get our first elimination as Gallus eliminate Briggs and Jensen. So that is your current NXT UK Tag Team Champions out. And then out of nowhere, after a bit of a distraction from Damon Kemp on the outside, Gallus are out. Wolfie gets pinned, so I'm a bit disappointed with that. Obviously wanted to support my local boys. And of course, with their ongoing issues, Briggs and Jensen start brawling with Gallus on the outside. So the security team and loads of referees and stuff come out to try and calm that down. And while all that's going on, Kemp turns on Julius Creed, hits him with a chair, and sets up Pretty Deadly to hit their finish and get the win. So that pretty much explains why Damon Kemp stopped Roderick Strong from showing his proof that it wasn't him that gave the signal last week. Again, it's likely Damon Kemp that has been the one that tipped him off and started the beatdown to the family. So your new Unified Tag Team Champions, Pretty Deadly. And my main thing from this is like the difference in wrestling ability and charisma between Julius and Brutus is off the scale. Julius seems to be far more talented than Brutus, sadly. But they do make a good tag team, so they'll probably still be in and around the tag scene for a while. After that, D'Angelo and Shannon, two stacks, are backstage. They're just sitting enjoying a coffee and a biscotti as Grimes comes along. They do the old Taxi Driver reference where Grimes asks if they're talking to him. And Tony D'Angelo asks Grimes to make him an offer, but Grimes doesn't need any help to go to the moon. Again, I'm not sure what offer they were even looking for. At this stage, I think there's a lot of padding going on, especially when you find out that they cut the Axiom and Nathan Fraser match that will now take place on, well, at this point, last night's NXT. After that is the Women's Unification match Meiko Satomura versus Blair Davenport versus Mandy Rose. Each of them make their entrance. Satomura gets the streamer treatment. It's huge respect from the audience and attendance. Blair Davenport has far too much dry ice on her entrance to the point at one point I thought she was going to trip because you can't see where she's going. And Mandy Rose is yay America, like stars and stripes galore, reminded me a lot of Liberty Bell from Glow. Don't know if that was intentional. And of course this starts out as any other triple threat with two heels and a babyface would. The heels initially gang up in Meiko Satomura. One of them goes to the pin. All breaks down as they fight over who gets the pin. But generally follows all your typical triple threat tropes. Some great offense from Satomura and Bea Priestley, but eventually Mandy gets the win, pinning Bea Priestley after hitting her knee. It was expected, but where did they go with that women's division from here? It was my belief initially that Mandy Rose came down just to freshen up the roster a little bit, but here we are nearly a year later. So, don't know what they're planning at this point. So after that we get a promo backstage where Alba Fire is addressing, I believe it was, who was it she was against? The one with all the letters on her name. I'm forgetting her name again, that's a shame. But it's at this point I noticed that she's really working on suppressing her accent. I can't say anything, I do the same so that you guys can understand me. But knowing the last from Glasgow, like you can tell that she's really trying. Though she does talk about coming from the land of hills and lochs, where she's from a city. So I did find that quite funny. It's equivalent to someone from New York talking about being from the Niagara Falls. We get the repeat of the backstage comic chat with Fraser and Axiom. So again, another repeated segment. After that, Wes Lee is backstage getting interviewed. Apparently he's going to be facing JD McDonough in NXT this week. And it's at this point I realise this is just another NXT TV episode, but they've put some title matches on it. He says JD McDonough is an extremely weird guy, but he's happy to get weird on Tuesday. Okay. After this, we go into the women's tag title match with Doudrop and Nikki ASH versus Chance and Carter. Start off with some interesting offense from the tag team champions, but not sure how effective it was. But it was interesting. It was a lot of using each other to hit the moves as opposed to using their powers combined. And Katana Chance tries to kind of flip around Viper and goes for arm drags and stuff. Eventually just bounces off her. Nikki brings her back on, brings back her apron trap beatdown, which was quite nice. But we get the hot tag only about 7 minutes into the show, and there's only 30 minutes left, so we know this one's ending soon. And the woman who won American Ninja Warrior just a couple of years ago takes nearly 40 seconds to climb the two ring steps to get in the apron, but then hops immediately onto the top rope. So some inconsistent selling from the tag team champion. Yeah, two really good tag team moves from Nikki and Doudrop, including a Samoan drop with a neck breaker, and a move that was akin to the Magic Killer was really nice looking as well. But neither of those are the finish, they just seem to be transitional moves. But here come Toxic Attraction out to ruin things yet again, where Gigi Dolan and JC Jane come out and cause a distraction, and as Doudrop's getting rolled up in the ring, JC Jane grabs Nikki SH's legs so she can't get in to break up the pin. So your still tag team champions are Chance and Carter, who even the commentators say that is the best outcome you want because they'll be the easiest to beat for the titles, which tells you everything you need to know about how they're still being viewed on the show. After that, we get the dyad backstage as they approach Grayson Waller, offering him a badge. Grayson refuses, and we go straight into a promo from him. He looks quite sad and dejected. Tells us all he's afraid of his mum, and when she called him, his mum gave him hell for nearly blinding that poor boy Apollo and not doing things the right way. He even tells him that he brought great disrespect upon the Waller name, sorry. But it has a message to his mummy as he kind of chokes up that his mum can kiss his ass, which no man should ever tell his mummy to, but he says he brings more glory to the Waller name than anyone in the family ever has before. And because he can, he's going to go and pick up a Hooters waitress or a swimwear model and go home and enjoy the life he's living. And before the main, we get the commentators nice and calm and talk through the card the way commentators should. Like, you just take a minute instead of just rattling through with loads of graphics. Actually have the two of them just standing there talking, and it's a back and forth. It's not just one commentator just reading off as fast as he can. After that, we finally get our main event, Tyler Bate versus Braun Breaker for the unified NXT Championship. Tyler Bate gives a really nice nostalgia entrance about the history of the UK Championship and his time in NXT UK. Obviously, there's only been 4 champs in 5 years, which is quite mental when you think about it. But it's a very good match, but there's some weird pacing. This is Tyler Bate, who's used to going like 25, 30, 35 minutes at a minimum. So you know his cardio is off the chain, and it's part of his toughness and part of his gimmick almost. But they were getting to the super exhausted spot after about 10 minutes just because of how little time they had left. So a lot of the comeback spots didn't have as much heat behind them as they normally would. But yeah, it was still a decent match. But poor Tyler Bate loses to a single spear from Braun Breaker, leaving us at the end of the night with Braun Breaker as the new unified champion, but not a single NXT UK title holder won. Pretty Deadly had already been called up to main NXT roster, so you can't even count them. So it was disappointing end to the NXT game. You would have thought they would have maybe had at least one of them win the title so they could keep the legacy alive somewhat, but nope, that's NXT UK completely gone now. So that was the B-Show show. Thank you all very much for watching. Do the usual, like, comment, subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at the HCW Show. Take care, and we'll see you later.